Ukraine has opened a new chapter in the war, and this time the target is not a trench, a tank, or a military base. It is Russia's maritime lifeline across the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Before we continue, subscribe to the Crisis Brief, because this video explains why this fight over ships, ports, and trade routes could reshape the war far beyond the coastline. The latest escalation is centered on a vital economic and logistical zone in the conflict. Russia and Ukraine are now trading strikes across the Black Sea region, while shipping routes, port facilities, grain exports, fuel movements, and military supply lines are increasingly coming under pressure. Ukraine says its drone forces have targeted Russian-linked vessels in the Sea of Azov. Ukrainian commanders claim that tankers, cargo ships, ferries, support vessels, and a tugboat have been hit during a concentrated campaign. Russia disputes Kiev's framing and has accused Ukraine of terrorism, but the impact on shipping has become difficult to ignore. And here is the first major rehook. Why would Ukraine spend so much effort attacking commercial-looking vessels instead of focusing only on warships? The answer is logistics. Modern wars are not sustained by speeches or flags. They are sustained by fuel, spare parts, food, ammunition, machinery, transport capacity, and money. Ships moving through the Sea of Azov help carry grain, fuel products, industrial goods, and supplies connected to Russia's economy and occupation network in southern Ukraine. The Sea of Azov is important because it links Russian ports, occupied Crimea, the Kerch Strait, and the wider Black Sea system. It also handles a share of Russian grain exports. When shipping slows, becomes expensive, or is forced onto longer routes, Moscow loses efficiency and absorbs additional costs. Russia has reportedly begun rerouting some grain exports away from the Sea of Azov. That response matters. Governments do not change trade routes because of symbolic attacks. They do it when risk becomes operationally serious. Ukraine's strategy appears designed to create exactly that kind of risk. A vessel does not have to sink to become unusable. Damage to cargo systems, navigation equipment, engines, accommodation areas, or loading infrastructure can force a ship out of service. Owners may demand higher premiums. Crews may become reluctant to sail. Ports may reduce operations. Shipping companies may delay departures while waiting for security guarantees. This is how a relatively small drone can create a larger economic effect. But the next part is more important. Ukraine is not attacking one isolated route. It is building pressure across the maritime network. Russian tankers have been targeted. Cargo ships have been hit. Shipping through the Don Azov Channel has faced restrictions. Ports connected to grain and fuel movements are under pressure. Ukrainian forces have also attacked energy infrastructure and maritime assets linked to occupied Crimea. When these actions are combined, they create friction. Every shipment takes longer. Every route requires more protection. Every vessel needs more inspection. Every port needs more air defense, electronic warfare, patrols, and repair crews. And here is the second rehook. Russia has more territory and a larger navy, but can it protect every ship, every port, and every trade route simultaneously? That is the dilemma Ukraine is trying to impose. Russia already needs air defense systems to protect Moscow, military airfields, oil refineries, ammunition depots, command centers, bridges, and occupied territory. Maritime attacks create more demand. If Russia moves defenses toward ports and shipping lanes, other targets may become more exposed. If it does not, Ukrainian drones can keep raising the cost of maritime trade. This is asymmetric warfare. Ukraine is using cheaper systems to threaten more expensive assets and force Russia into disproportionate spending. The Black Sea has enormous political importance. Russia has tried to use pressure on Ukrainian ports to weaken Kiev's economy and restrict agricultural exports. Odessa, Chornomorsk, and other port areas remain critical to Ukraine's access to global markets. Recent Russian strikes have hit civilian, industrial, and port infrastructure in the Odessa region, killing civilians and disrupting trade. Ukraine's Black Sea export capacity has also suffered. That fact should not be ignored. This is not a one-sided maritime campaign. Russia is striking Ukrainian ports while Ukraine attacks Russian vessels and routes. But from Kyiv's perspective, accepting permanent Russian dominance at sea would be even more dangerous. Ukraine has already shown that Russia's Black Sea fleet is vulnerable. Earlier operations forced Russian naval assets to change locations, reduce activity near Ukraine's coast, and rely more heavily on distant bases. Now, Kyiv is extending pressure from warships to the commercial and logistical systems that support Russia's war economy. Here is the third rehook. This may no longer be only a battle for control of the sea. It may be a battle over which side can keep its economy connected to the outside world. Russia depends on maritime exports for revenue. Grain, oil products, and other commodities generate income and preserve trade relationships. Ukraine depends on maritime access to sell agricultural goods and support its own economy. Both countries therefore see ports and shipping as strategic assets. The difference is that Russia began this invasion with greater naval power. Ukraine had to build a new kind of maritime defense from scratch. Instead of trying to match Russia ship for ship, Ukraine developed sea drones, long-range aerial drones, improved targeting methods, and distributed production. These systems are cheaper than conventional warships and can be launched from multiple locations. They are difficult to detect, replaceable, and capable of threatening vessels far from the immediate front. That innovation has changed the balance. A large ship may cost tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. A port can contain infrastructure worth billions. A drone costing a fraction of that amount can force a shutdown, cause damage, trigger insurance losses, or require an expensive defensive response. And now comes the fourth rehook. The real weapon may not be the explosion. It may be uncertainty. Shipping depends on predictability. Companies need to know when a vessel will arrive, whether a port is operating, whether insurance is available, and whether cargo can be delivered safely. Repeated drone attacks destroy that predictability. Even unsuccessful strikes can create delays. A warning can close a channel. Debris can halt traffic. A damaged tanker can block loading schedules. Increased inspections can slow every vessel behind it. The economic consequences spread far beyond the original target. Ukraine's campaign is therefore aimed at both physical infrastructure and confidence. For Russia, the Sea of Azov was supposed to be a protected internal zone after the occupation of Ukrainian coastal territory and the tightening of control around the Kerch Strait. Ukraine is now challenging that assumption. Distance, geography, and naval superiority no longer guarantee safety. That message will be studied far beyond this war. Militaries around the world are watching how inexpensive unmanned systems can threaten shipping, ports, refineries, bridges, and coastal infrastructure. Countries with major export terminals and busy sea lanes will have to reconsider how they defend them. But for Ukraine, the purpose is immediate. Kyiv wants to weaken Russia's ability to move supplies, earn revenue, support occupied Crimea, and sustain pressure on southern Ukraine. It also wants to prove that Russian attacks on Ukrainian trade will produce consequences for Russian trade. That does not mean Ukraine can completely close Russia's maritime routes. Russia has alternative ports, larger resources, and the ability to reroute cargo. It can increase escorts, strengthen defenses, change sailing patterns, and repair damaged vessels. But every adaptation costs time and money. The final rehook is this: Ukraine does not need to shut down the entire Black Sea. It only needs to make Russia's lifeline less reliable, more expensive, and harder to defend. That is why this campaign matters. It is not about one ship or one dramatic explosion. It is about pressure accumulating across fuel routes, grain exports, occupied territory, military logistics, and commercial confidence. Russia's Black Sea lifeline is under attack, but the outcome is still uncertain in the coming months ahead. Moscow will respond, Ukraine will adapt, and both sides will continue fighting over ports and trade routes that connect this war to the global economy. Subscribe to the Crisis Brief for clear, evidence-based updates on Ukraine, Russia, and the strategies changing modern warfare. Then tell us in the comments, can Ukraine's drone campaign seriously weaken Russia's maritime network, or will Moscow successfully reroute and defend its lifeline?